So I haven't made a video in a while, and for those of you who have watched the other videos on the channel, as you know, I set this up primarily during the COVID lockdowns for my students so that it was a resource study tool. Since then, I've started making videos that are more general interest in finance, and that's what this one is. So we'll talk about the increase in interest rates over the last 18 months. Two things have changed. I've got a microphone. Hopefully the sound's a bit better. And I've switched to a black screen because my daughter says it's better than a white screen for the background. If you disagree, write something in the comments, and I'm happy to do whatever the majority would like. So now I'll talk about this from the perspective of Canada, but it's very similar throughout the world because during this time period, 80% of the federal banks in the world, or the central banks, whatever you prefer to call them, increased interest rates. Okay, and this happened to some extreme. So if you look at Canada as an example, if we go from January of 2022 to January of 2023, the Bank of Canada rate was 0.25%, so almost zero in 2022, and it went up to 4.75% as of June in 2023. So you have a 4.5% increase in 18 months, which is pretty significant. So why did they do it? The main reason is everyone was trying to stop inflation. Okay, and inflation had started to get very high after the lockdowns. So for a variety of reasons, supply had gone down, people were spending, the economy was growing, all kinds of stuff. And inflation, if it gets excessive, it can cause a lot of problems for the economy. Okay, so there can be some economic problems if inflation is too high. What is too high? The Federal Reserve in the U.S. Shoots for a target of 2% inflation. And it had gotten to essentially 9%, which was well above. So they raised interest rates and in order to curtail that. The good news in all of this is that they essentially felt that the economy was sound. Okay, so by that, other than inflation, they felt the economy was growing well and it wasn't in a rocky state. If it was in difficult times, raising interest rates would have caused a deep recession or possibly even a depression. Okay, now who wins and loses? Well, who loses? The first person who would lose is anyone with variable rate debt. So if you have a mortgage with variable rate, then your cost of your interest has gone up. Okay, who else would lose if your mortgage is maturing? Okay, so you might have been locked in and you had 5 years and now all of a sudden it matured this year and you have to refinance at today's rates, which are going to be 4.5% higher than probably what you financed at. And the last one is bondholders. So if somebody was a bondholder in the past, you probably ended up buying a bond that wasn't paying very much, maybe 2%, 3%. So now you can get much higher interest rates. So if you ever tried to resell your bond, it would be at a lower value now. And essentially it forces you to hold it on. Okay, so who wins out of all of this? If you have a savings account, then you're going to earn a higher rate of interest, okay, or like a T-bill or a GIC. The other one, I'll put a question mark beside this, but this remains to be seen. But stocks, okay, stockholders may win because generally it sounds contradictory because when you raise interest rates, the markets go down as they did last year. But the signal it usually sends is that governments raise interest rates when the economy is doing well. So after the initial decline, you would usually expect to see stocks to recover, which they have started for the last 6 months. We'll see what happens going forward if this continues on or not. So where do we stand right now? What will happen to interest rates right now? Really, it seems that they're going to be flat or slight increases in the future. Okay, so inflation is still above what they want. It's around 4%. They want to get it to 2%. So the bulk of the increases seem to be done. But you might see 0.25% or 0.5% going forward as they edge towards getting their inflation target. Would they go down? Only if there's really a recession. Okay, so if a recession occurs, then you would expect to see interest rates would start to decline. And how fast they would decline and by how much would depend on the severity of the recession. And that was one of the main reasons why the government wanted to raise the rates as well, because when they're at 0.25%, there's nothing you can do. But at 4.75, you have the ability to lower it 1% or 2% if the economy got worse.